Welcome to this session, this hands-on session where I'm going to talk about the materials, technique, and how we go about actually writing a small piece of Arabic calligraphy. Then I'm going to show you finished pieces. Usually finished pieces take much longer time, so we just want to give you a flavor of what it takes. So here we go. I first want to introduce the different materials that we use for Arabic calligraphy. Number one, the paper. Okay, we use a special calligraphy paper, and what's special about this paper is the fact that it is coated and sized. This special coating is called Ahar. It is a mixture of potassium alum and egg white. They react together and produce a material, glossy looking material called Ahar. And we put few coat on a piece of paper like this. Then we burnish it. We burnish it with an agate burnisher like this so that it's very smooth. Before we do all of this, we can dye the paper. This particular paper is dyed with black tea, so it gives us this very nice warm brownish color. Okay, we can start with a mechanical paper and do this, or we can start with a handmade paper. This is a very nice handmade paper. Okay, we do the same process. We apply that coat called Ahar, and then we burnish it with the agate burnisher, and then we let it age for a year or more. Then it is ready for writing. Because the paper is labor intensive, it's very expensive. I want to show you another one. This one is dyed with pomegranate peel, so we get this very nice yellowish color. As I said, because the paper is expensive, when we practice on this expensive paper, we use every little millimeter so we don't waste any of the paper. Okay, so this is an exercise sheet on this Ahar paper. As a matter of fact, because the paper is expensive, we don't start the practice on the Ahar paper. We try to find something, commercial that has the feel of the expensive paper. So we do our initial practice on this less expensive paper. Here are some less expensive paper that sort of have the same finish. The finish is, glass to semi-gloss finish, so we can use these papers for practice. And I will show you again when we start writing on a nice Ahar paper. Okay, so that's the paper. Now talk about the ink. The ink is also a special ink. It's a very sort of simple ink, and it's made out of soot, either wood soot or oil soot. It's mixed with water and gum arabic. Gum arabic acts as a binder. Okay, by the way, just let's go back to the paper. That Ahar paper, the way it is coated and sized, makes it live for hundreds of years. That's why we have manuscripts from the 10th century. So now the ink, like I said, it's made out of soot, gum arabic, and water, and the best ink comes from Iran nowadays, and there are families who have been producing ink for many years, and they have their own recipes. What we do with the ink, we get an inkwell, and an inkwell can be glass like this, or can be metal, something small as you see. And then what we do is we take some natural silk, and we take this silk and we put it in the inkwell. Now the purpose of the silk is to hold the ink, but also when we dip our pen, we don't get a big blob of ink on the tip of the pen, as we will see in a minute. So after we put this silk in, okay, we add a little bit of this ink. Okay, so let's do that over here. So we're gonna take some of this ink and we're gonna add to the inkwell, as you see here. Okay. And then we're gonna mix this ink a little bit around until the whole silk is soaked. I'm gonna take a little bit of it off from the edges here. And what we do is we get a porcupine spike. It is perfect for moving the silk and soaking it in nicely in the ink. Now, we put a little bit of ink in there in order to make the ink flow nicely. We're gonna add a little bit of water, and we should use clean water. I am using deionized water to cut the ink with, so it flows. So a little bit of water. Then after that, I just use a couple of drops of rose water, and rose water actually helps the ink flow a little better. Couple of drops of rose water, and then I'm gonna mix those nicely. So here we go, just poking them a little bit, moving them around like this. And I see the silk, so that means I didn't add enough ink, so I'm gonna add a little bit more. It's not completely soaked, so I'm gonna add a little bit more here until we see that it is completely soaked. And so I'm gonna wipe this a little bit. So we have it here, and I think I'm gonna need some more water to cut the ink a little bit. I think I think it's good. We're gonna try it in a little bit and make sure it is working just fine. We shall see that in a little bit. So we're gonna come back to this in a little bit. And now, so that is the ink, okay, and the inkwell. Let's wipe this. Okay, and now we're going to talk about pens, the pens that we use for Arabic calligraphy. Well, the pens are usually made out of reed and bamboo. So, for example, we have a bamboo pen here. We sharpen it and cut it at an angle, as you see here. So that's one kind. We have the small reed pens, see, smaller reed, aged reed. Bamboo, okay, and these, when we get the reed or the bamboo, it obviously it doesn't come fashion, it comes like this, it's just a stick. So we have to fashion it, sharpen it, and shape it so that we have a writing tip like this, see? And the way we do that, we use a special knife, sort of like a carving knife. It looks like this, okay? So we open this and sharpen it. Once we are done with the first part, then we take it on a piece of bone or very hard plastic, and then we cut it at the angle that we want. Okay, so if we want to move to a much larger size writing, then you know the bamboo doesn't cut it anymore, so we would fashion a big pen out of wood like this, see, with a very wide tip. So this is an introduction about the different kinds of of pens that we use in Arabic calligraphy and how we prepare them. Okay. All right. So when we write, as you may be able to see here, we write on a hard board like this, and the hard board is supported by a stand. So we write at an angle. I'd say the angle is about 30-35 degrees. So it's tilted towards me with a little angle, so I have a nice control. Then we put a piece of leather on top of it. The piece of leather helps, you know, when you're pressing the pen, you don't press against the hard surface, so you don't ruin your pen quickly. So the pen remains sharp because the leather gives a little bit. So that's another piece that we use in order to ensure that our writing is good. Okay. Now the process of writing. Well, you know, we start with selecting a text that we want to write. And what kind of text do we usually write in Arabic calligraphy? Usually, it's either a Quranic verse, a verse from the Quran, or a saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or some poetry, Arabic poetry, Persian poetry, or Turkish poetry, or some wise saying, some wisdom. These are typically what is written. Now, people also like their names written, so we do that. and then there is writing for different purposes, you know, signs and logos and things like that. Okay? So we select a text, and when we select the text, when a calligrapher selects a text, he or she starts, you know, experimenting with this text using a pencil first, you know, just to see what the layout is going to be like using a pencil. All right? So after massaging the text into some good form, acceptable form, for example, this is a pencil sketch of some selected text and how, you know, how it's gonna look like when we make a calligraphic design out of it. Here is another example of a selected text, you know, how the words are gonna fit together. And this goes through a process of refinement to see what, you know, what the shape is gonna look like, that, you know. After we do that, we start making sketches using the actual calligraphy pen to see, you know, if the pencil sketch really is gonna produce a nice design or not. So we practice with this few times, and then we start the actual process of writing. Okay, now, so we're gonna try that. So I'm gonna practice on a practice sheet first, because like I said, you know, the calligraphy paper is very labor intensive and it's expensive. So I'm going to practice first a little bit on a practice sheet to see, you know, what my text is gonna look like. So I put a mark here for a line, and I want to see, and now this text I'm gonna write, it has been done many times, so I'm just using it as an illustration. So I'm gonna write it, you know, one time quickly, then I'm gonna go to the expensive paper, and then I would have to be careful. So let's see. And this is a little prayer. It says, Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir. Oh God, please make this easy for me. Okay, So this is just a warm-up to see if, you know, the technique is working, the paper, the ink, everything is working together nicely or not. And a little practice, little warming up. And now I think, you know, things look good enough. So I'm gonna go and use now the expensive paper. Okay? So here is the expensive paper. The Ahar paper, the nicely sized paper. I'm gonna straighten it so it doesn't bounce back at me. So it was rolled, so I'm just gonna flatten it so it sits nicely. Okay, so little bit more. Okay, here we go. Now I'm gonna put a line in it, but before I do that, that coating that we talked about sort of needs to be treated a little bit before we write. And what we do is we sprinkle a little bit of baby powder on this Ahar paper and sort of move it around a little bit, work it in, right? So the writing now is easier, and the correcting, after we write, we're going to do some correcting. The correction or the correcting process also becomes easier. So this is the paper, okay? And I'm going to put a line in it. So this string here makes an impression on the paper, so I don't have to use a pencil, see? And you know, then it might be hard to get rid of the pencil mark. Okay, so now this paper is ready, and I'm going to start writing my same line, but I'm gonna be a little bit more careful now because this is close to final, right? So one of the things that we do is we try not to touch the paper with our hand because our body oil will get on the paper, and then the pen will glide over it, and it will have the wrong effect. So it's writing on oil is not good. So I put on gloves here. This is for holding the paper, and this is for preventing these two fingers from touching the paper when I write, but these three fingers are free to hold the pen and move it. Okay, so we're gonna start. All right, here we go. Okay, now I did make some mistakes here. So the special paper allows me to correct, and the way I do correction is I use an X-Acto knife, see, very sharp, and the way the paper is made allows me to scratch some of this ink. See, I can remove this line because I don't like it. It wasn't a good line. See? So the paper allows corrections like this. So finally, or at the end, the calligraphy is accurate to a hair because of the ability to do the corrections as I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm gonna redraw this and make it smaller. So something like this, and this also is not needed. All right, so we have a line, and after this, what we do is take it to the next level. The next level is the following. So this paper is thin, as you can see. It's like a regular paper. So what you need to do next is take it and stick it on a backing board to give it some strength. Yes? Once you stick it on a backing board, so this is a finished piece. I'm going to show you another example of a finished piece. Here is another finished piece on the same kind of Ahar paper. We take this and we stick it on a backing board, and then after we do that, we do the illumination or the decoration or the ornament. And this is done by a different artist. But I want to show you how we do this. Well, there are two kinds of illumination and borders. I can use marble paper like this. See, these are different kinds of marble paper that I can use to make a border and sort of embellish the calligraphy. And the other kind is gold and color, and I'm going to show you examples of these. So the first example is a piece, a calligraphy piece finished with this marble paper, this ebru paper, as you can see here. Yes, so the ebru is on the border around, and we have some gold actually to frame the piece, as you can see here. So this is one option, the nice marble paper border. The other option is a lot more expensive, as you can imagine, and it's done by a different artist, like I said. And it involves gold leafing and gold coloring, gold wash, and gouache color. So this is another finished piece where you see another gold border here, and an internal border, and you see gold ornamentation and some color painting here, another border layer in the blue, and then a gold wash called halkar, okay, around the embellished piece. So this is a finished piece, and it's framed. One more example where the ornamentation is very lavish, if you wish. Take a look here, for example. And like I said, normally the ornamentation is done by a different artist, and it takes many months to finish. Okay. That's all I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for listening and watching, and I hope you found it educational.